Watering your Christmas tree is a horrible idea. Inviting someone to church is a wonderful idea. Don't burn down your Christmas tree. Invite someone to church.
All right, there you have it. Not watering your Christmas tree is hard. Inviting someone to church is incredibly a good idea. It's a great idea. And so that's what I want to talk to you about. We want to talk to you about invitation of a lifetime. And I'll tell you, it was the spring of 1992. Think about where you were. Some of you weren't even here, which is sad. It was the spring of 1992. And my dad, I came home from Olivet. I graduated, but I was living in Bourbonnais, Illinois, and I drove home to see my parents. It was a weekend, and we were sitting around the house on Saturday. There wasn't a lot to do, and it was kind of a beautiful, really spring day. And it was sidewalk sales at Salem. Does anybody remember sidewalk sales? Salem, big old sidewalk sales. That was good times in Salem right then. So my dad's like, hey, my mom and dad were like, hey, you want to run into town with us? We're gonna go see what's going on at sidewalk sales and go to Radio Shack. It's good times. Remember Radio Shack? Okay, yeah, went to Radio Shack, and it was there. So I was like, I don't know if I want to go in there. Like, he was like, yeah, come on, let's just go with us. Just right up there to Radio Shack with us, and we'll look around and find something, see if we can get a sale or a deal on something. I was like, all right, whatever. I had no idea when I said yes to that invitation how it would change my life forever. It impacted my life in such a way that I had no idea. And when I walked out of the house, my mom and dad lived in the house right here next to the church, and I'd come home to see him for the weekend. And when I walked out the front door and got in the car with him and rode to town, I had no inclination of the impact that invitation would have on my life, because it was at sidewalk sales and Judy's Fashions in front of Radio Shack that I saw the most beautiful girl I had ever seen in my entire life. And so 26 years later, I think we have a picture somewhere, maybe? No? I don't know if we have a picture, maybe? There we go. 26 years later, that is the impact of that invitation had on my life. My family. I met Cheryl at sidewalk sales. It was an awesome thing. I heard angels singing. It was like, ah! And there she was, and my dad made this invitation. Little did I know our parents had gotten together, and it was really just an arranged marriage. There was a plan behind that invitation, but I had no idea that was what it was. And then the fact of the matter is, you have no earthly idea what kind of an impact an invitation can have. And looking back on that and the things that I've experienced with Cheryl and our kids and our family, it all boils down to that one invitation. And you are in the world as a result of an invitation. You know, you have a date. There was a date. There are numbers, and hopefully, there was a wedding at some point in time for some of you, and some of you wish you had declined that invitation, but maybe not. But regret often begins with an invitation, and great things begin with an invitation, and an invitation can change everything, and you all have your own stories of some sort of invitation that took place in your life at some point in time. And the fact of the matter is, you have, I want this to just soak in for a second, but you have the power, every single one of us in here, have the power to change the trajectory of someone's entire life through one single invitation. And I just want that to soak in for a second. You have the power to change the trajectory of someone's entire life through a single invitation. And we believe that the heart of God here at Grace Church Nazarene, and this is going to be a little bit of a different message. I want to talk about our church a little bit, which is basically church is what? It's an ecclesia, which is a gathering of people, which when I say I'm talking about our church, I'm talking about all of us, right? And I want to talk a little bit about that. But we believe as a church, and I believe as a pastor, that the heart of God really and truly beats for those that are far from him, and ours should beat the exact same way. I believe that our God's heart, really his passion, to know God and to know who he is, and we all have a different image of what that looks like, but I believe that the heart of our God beats particularly strong for those who are farthest from him, and that our hearts should reflect his heart, and therefore our hearts should beat equally as strong for people who are far from God, that are not sitting in these pews, chairs, blue puffies. And so through the faithfulness, but here's the thing, through the faithfulness of church, I want to talk a little bit about our church and where we come from. And we just celebrated, last year we celebrated our 60th anniversary as a church, Grace Church of the Nazarene. And we celebrated that big time, and we wanted to hear that. But we are the church that we are today because of the faithfulness of church people, quote, church people that are at church. And we began to work hard, and we still do. There was, at some point in time, there was a group of 50 people that met in a garage or close to it, or maybe it was close to 100, but their heart beat for something bigger. Their heart beat for something really specifically for people who were far from God. And because of that, we are the church we are today. And our goal was to create a church, and really what we're working to do now, and through the years, and there's been a lot of changes through church, and I am so incredibly grateful that there have been people who are part of our church that are actual church people that have been willing to change and move throughout the years to become the church that we are today. And all across America, you will find churches where people have not been willing to do that. They have not been willing to be a church for unchurched people. They've not been willing to be the kind of church that beats, whose heart beats for people who are far from God. And it's really difficult, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. But a church, our church, we wanted to create a church here, and something that is my passion is to create a church that is for seekers, starters, and returners. It's a church where we don't skip over or skim through difficult texts or topics. A church where the difficult things are discussed in a way where everybody is comfortable and can understand. A church where we get rid of unnecessary barriers and we remove that. That we work hard to create irresistible environments and appealing settings and engaging communication and great worship and helpful content. A church where kids insist parents get up and bring them. And I'm grateful that we're that kind of church. I can't tell you the number of people that I've talked to through Starting Point, or people that have been new to our church that have joined this church and become members and went through Grace 101. And because of that, and one of the things that we do at Grace 101, if you've never been, it's kind of we call it membership, but I hate that term. It's really just when you choose to associate with us and be part of who we are as a church. One of the things that we do at that meeting, if you've ever been, is we sit around, we gather around the table, and then we have everybody kind of tell what brought them to Grace Church of the Nazarene and why they're here. And inevitably, I'm always amazed at how many people say, well, my kids came and they really liked it. And so we're here. And we're creating a church where people volunteer and they give sacrificially. Right now, did you know that it takes approximately 90 people to volunteer on a Sunday to make all this happen? With your kids, you just drop them off and you check them in and you get a sticker, and your kid gets a sticker on the back. But there's so much more to that. And we want to be that kind of place. We're working to be that kind of church where the next generation can experience and fall in love with Jesus. And we have over 100 high school students that meet here on Wednesday nights, and probably close to 60 to 80 of junior high students that meet on Sunday nights at Grace Extreme, close to 60 or 180. We're trying to do everything we can so that the next generation, the generation that's following me, the generation behind me, learns how to fall in love with a guy named Jesus. In Acts chapter 15, verses 19 says this: "It is my judgment, therefore, that we should not make it difficult for Gentiles who are turning to God. Now, this is Paul. And Paul was actually this missionary to the Gentiles. And if you don't know what a Gentile is anybody that's Jew. And so when Jesus was a Jew and they raised him up, and these disciples were Jewish, and there was this movement. And Paul said, hey, you know what? When Jesus died and was resurrected, and they began this mission of the church that started in the 2nd chapter of Acts, and they started to go out and tell other people about Jesus, and they started to spread the gospel throughout Samaria and Judea and to all parts of the earth. It really spread among Jews. And Paul said, hey, you know what? I think that there are Gentiles. There are people that are not Jewish that I believe need to hear about this guy named Jesus. And so that's what Paul was talking about here. And just some context for that passage of Scripture, Jews were of the opinion that, hey, you needed to convert to be a Jew to become a follower of Jesus Christ. And Paul was like, hey, I don't think we need to make it difficult for people to come to know this guy named Jesus. That's what he said. It's my judgment that therefore that we should not make it difficult for the Gentiles who are turning to God. Now, some of you here this morning get that. Some of you understand that because once upon a time, you were unchurched people. Once upon a time, you were someone who was far from God. And you get that. And what happened is somebody invited you to church. And they were nervous when they invited you. They're like, I don't know if I should. I don't know what they're going to say. I don't know if they're going to come. They're going to think this is weird. You were nervous. And maybe you came with your significant other, and maybe it was too loud, and maybe the music wasn't what you expected here, and the pastor had blue jeans on, and you were like, what in the world? But I didn't tell you about anything, and I didn't yell at you, and some of you are here because of that. And I even told you that you didn't even have to believe. And people seemed to be normal and happy, and there were coffee and donuts. What a great place. Some of you brought kids, and some of you were so nervous handing your kids off to strangers. But you did. Now you're one of us. And you understand the power of an invitation. Many of you, some of you, believe me, but you don't get this. Some of you can imagine, but you've never experienced it because you've just always been here. And I will go as far as to say this. If you have never invited and experienced our church with an unchurched person or an unbelieving friend, you can't fully appreciate what we're trying to do here. Until you pull in with somebody that you've invited that is far from God, you will never understand what we do here. Until you've stood at the door planning to meet them and experience with them church, you've never experienced this. You've never experienced the panic of extending that invitation. Oh, should I invite them? You've never experienced the panic of being somebody that is far from God and walking in here going, man, what are they going to say to me? Am I dressed okay? Do I look okay? Do I fit in? Will I know what's going on? You'll never experience the terror of wondering and hoping if you'll be accepted. So until you've seen us through the eyes and heard us through the ears of a seeker, starter, or returner, you haven't seen and heard what we're about. Because see, when you are an inviter, when you are someone who invites people or unchurched people or people who are far from God, when you're that type of person, here's what happens. Something interesting happens when you become that kind of person. Here's what happens. You begin to critique and complain correctly. Let me tell you what that sounds like. Inviters, when you're inviting somebody who is unchurched and far from God, when you're an inviter, you feel the burden to make sure that we get this right at church. Here's what it's like. It's like if you invite me to your house for a party, or if I invite you to my house for a party, it's not a big deal for you. You maybe bring a side dish and you show up. If you invite me and all of us, the rest of this church, to your house for a party, I don't know about you, but my wife's doing a flight of the bumblebee. Oh, we got to make this right. We can't let them know that we live here, Hide stuff. Do not open a closet, Want to make sure that we get this right? And when you invite an unchurched or somebody who is completely far from God, you have that same panic. Oh man, I hope this goes okay. I hope they have a good experience, because we only have one chance to make a good first impression on somebody who is unchurched or far from God. And when you're like, man, I hope the children's workers are on their game. All this is going through your head. I hope they don't lose this kid. I hope they give them the same kid that they came in with when they leave. All of a sudden, church begins to feel different, and it feels like you're the one hosting the party. Oh man, I hope Trent just preaches a normal sermon and it's not some kind of weird thing that happens today. I hope I don't have to leave here with them going, well, it's never really like that. Some kind of weird experience. Inviters feel the burden to get it right. How it looks, how it feels, how it smells, how their people are greeted. All of a sudden, when you're an inviter, you begin to see church differently. And some of you just come in every Sunday and you just sit. You never invite anybody, so you've never experienced that. You've never experienced the tension that some people feel like, oh man, I hope this is good. I hope the coffee's on point. I hope it's good. Because when you invite someone, you take ownership of it. And all of a sudden, you have a vested interest in how things go on Sunday. And all of a sudden, you're like, well, maybe I should volunteer in the children's area. Maybe I should serve one service and go to attend the other. When you invite someone and they finally come, you're praying that something weird doesn't happen. You're hoping that it all goes well. And let me tell you something about Grace Church of Nazarene. We are not trying to out-worship. I'm definitely not trying to out-preach, because I don't think I can. We're not trying to out-give or out-build or out-behave other churches. It's not what we're about. We want to be a church. I want this to be a church where it's not about us. It's about how we treat unchurched people and people who are far from God. I want you to think about the people that you have in your life that you would think, those people would never, ever come to church. It's the kind of people that we want to invite to church that would, like, oh man, did you see who's here? I never thought I'd see the day. Acts chapter 2 gives us a perfect picture of what church looked like. Chapter 2, verse 46, it says this: they worshiped together at the temple each day. By the way, from here on out, we're meeting every day. No, I'm just kidding. They met in homes for the Lord's Supper, and they shared their meals with great joy and generosity, all the while praising God and enjoying the goodwill of all the people. And each day the Lord added to their fellowship those who were being saved. Here's the sad thing that I've come to know about churches, and I've been around them my entire life. Churches have a tendency to become inward focused. It just happens, and nobody stands up at the board meeting and says, hey, we want to stop thinking about everybody else and we want to start thinking about only us. Nobody does that. The pastor doesn't preach a sermon on, hey, let's focus on us. It's all about us. It just happens. We tend to be inward focused. We drift that way. Churches drift that way. It's an easy drift because all of a sudden our finances and everything that we do here becomes about what we can do for us. And your church has become inwardly focused when every decision that is made comes from a place of what is good for those who are already here. When every decision revolves around what makes it more comfortable for us and what I like. You know we've become inwardly focused when my mission is continually focused on us. My mission is to continually focus on pushing us out and making us uncomfortable with what we're doing here. And I believe Salem Grace is actually that kind of church. This week, I just want to recognize some other people. I told you it's going to be a little bit different message. This week, we had Thanksgiving dinner here, and I got to tell you, if you didn't show up to help, that's okay. I know that people are busy, but for those of people that, if you participated, if you gave, if you showed up and were here, or you served, or you made something, or you donated something, would you just stand up? Thanksgiving dinner this week? Okay, yeah. Cool. Thank you. You can sit down. I just want to recognize you. We served over 400 people on Thanksgiving, and it was the most beautiful thing to see our church serving our community. And I got to tell you just real quickly how God works. At noon, we were out of food. We had advertised from 10 to 2 that we would serve Thanksgiving dinner, and we delivered, we delivered meals to people. I can't even remember how many we delivered. It was more than actually came. We actually delivered, but it was close to 400 people. And at noon, we were completely we were running out of food. Like, we were out of food. We had served that many people already by noon. And we were like, I don't know. And honestly, I'm embarrassed as your pastor. I'm embarrassed to say, I would love to say, God's going to provide. He's going to, I didn't do that. I was like, we may have to shut down early. I'm a horrible example. Please do not follow me, okay? I don't know why I doubted. But Travis and Christy Gillett ran up to IGA. They were closing, gave us a lot of stuff. They brought it back. We kept serving people. Running out again. Like, we were out of turkey. We were out of a lot of things. And in walked somebody from the police department and said, hey, somebody brought us a turkey. We've already eaten on it. There's no way we're going to eat all this. Can you guys use it? We continued. And I was so proud of our church to be that kind of church that it's not about us. And I pray that we continue to pray and give and serve and love, and not to be a kind of church that gets insider focused quickly, and I don't think we are. My primary concern from the beginning was that we would just do church. It wasn't that we would just do church better than other churches. That's not our goal. We didn't start that way. I don't want us to get that way, and neither do you. And here's how we will keep from doing that. It's really on your shoulders. It's on all of our shoulders. But we are headed into prime invite season. We are headed into the time of the year when it is prime invite season for church. And I think our church is something that you can be proud to invite somebody to. People who are far from God. I don't care what they wear. I don't care what they look like or smell like or who their friends are. This is a place I feel like welcomes people the way they are. And really, we really believe that you belong here, that people belong here at this church. I want it to grow, not because we can have a big church and I'm like, woo, look at all the people you have coming. It's not about that. It's about people who don't know the hope of Jesus Christ and how he can change their life. All around us, there are people that are new to town, new to church, dealing with something unexpected, something they weren't prepared for. There are people whose marriages are struggling. There are people that are working hard to overcome grief this time of year, overcome depression. I read a quote this week by Dawson McAllister, and it said this: I've never seen an empty chair give its life to Christ. We have some here this morning, empty chairs. he also goes on to say, if you're buying chairs, put butts in them, which I thought was pretty good. I mean, if we're going to buy these chairs and we're going to set them up, we need to put butts in them. A church to stay flat in attendance, you have to have the same amount of first-timers. In other words, there's some statistics I've studied that we need between 15 and 20 new people every week and for our church to grow, at least minimum. For our church to even remotely grow, we have to have between 15 and 20 to 25 newcomers every week. In other words, if 25 of you would invite one person that was far from God, who in your life is far from God? And I want you, and you're like, okay, who do we need to invite? We really only have about 48 preaching Sundays a year. That's it. It's the opportunity we have here at church to influence. You guys have opportunities where you work, where you live, the people you run around with. It really rests on all of us. And you think, okay, who do we invite? Here's 3 things I want you to listen for, okay, when you're looking to invite somebody this holiday season. Listen for this. Number one, I've heard it, and I stole this. I didn't think of this myself, but it's called the 3 knots, okay, N-O-T-S, the 3 knots. The first one is this: they're not in church. They're not making church a part of their regular routine. They're not in church. Listen for that. The second is this: things are not going well in their life. Something is going on in their life, and it's not going well. And number 3, they're not prepared for something. Birth of a baby, a marriage, something going on in their life, kids transitioning. Those are the 3 things you should look for. And here's what I'd like you guys to do, is just to have, it's called the elevator pitch. Like I'm not expecting you to bang on doors and go in and sit down and have dinner with them and pull out a PowerPoint presentation on 50 reasons why they should go to church, okay? That's not what we're looking for. We're just looking for an elevator pitch. When you hear or identify one of those 3 knots, you say, really? You should visit my church this Sunday. And invite them and let God begin to work on their lives. Say something like, hey, life is complicated and you want to get it right. We want to help. Hey, just come to church and come sit with me. Just ask people to come sit with you at church. I think you'll be surprised. Say, hey, I'll wait for you at the door. And I thought about that for a minute, and then I want you to do another exercise real quick this morning. I want you to think about the most awkward, uncomfortable place that you could ever imagine yourself being. I don't know where that is. The most awkward, uncomfortable place that you could ever imagine yourself going or being at, and then having one of your friends invite you to go there. And you'd be like, oh, I want you to imagine how you would feel going into that situation, because that's exactly how people feel when they walk into church. For those of us that go to church, it's not a big deal. We come here, we're like, okay, what's so hard about this? But for somebody who is unchurched, or for somebody that is far from God, this place and all of you and me and this band and the cross and the lights, and it's all intimidating. And so I want you to start thinking that way and say, hey, listen, just come to my church. Come sit with me. And you have my promise. We won't do anything weird over the next 3 or 4 weeks. It'll be pretty normal. And just invite people to church. I think in conclusion, I would say this. Many of us are Christians. Most of us in here would consider ourselves Christians or followers of Jesus Christ. We want to do what Jesus told us to do. We want to believe what he taught was right. We know we need to invite, but many of us do it out of respect or obligation, right? Well, Trent told me I should invite somebody, That's moralistic teaching. Relying on our ability to do what he taught out of respect is just that. Let me tell you about something. You respect a teacher, but you love a Savior. Who is he to you? Because when you recognize Jesus Christ as your Savior, you love what he has done for you. And you want to share it. Do you know, 3 questions, do you know who hangs in the balance of your willingness to extend an invitation this week? You have the power to change the trajectory of someone's entire life through a single or a series of invitations. More importantly, you have the power to ensure that we continue to be a church for unchurched people and who are far from God. And an invitation can change everything. Stand with me. Father, thank you so much for the people that you've placed in our lives who cared enough to invite us, who cared enough to tell us about the love of a Savior, the hope that we have in you. Lord, I just pray that we would continue to be the kind of church who cares for people who are far from God, who are so unlike us and so different from what you taught. But Lord, help us to extend love and invitation to those people. Help us to think about the people that we work with, the people that we see on a daily basis, people who are going through difficult times, people who are having trouble with their family or marriages or their kids or their children, and they're battling health issues or whatever it is, Lord. I just pray that you, Father, would begin to weave those people in and out of our lives. And Lord, help us be responsible enough and out of love for you, and out of love for what you can do for them, help us to extend an invitation this week to someone who doesn't know you. Lord, I just pray that we would continue to be outward thinking and not let us get inward focused, Lord, that we can constantly be thinking about people who don't know you and how we will have the opportunity to extend an invitation. Lord, I just pray that you would give every single person in here this morning an opportunity to invite someone this week, that you would put somebody in their path, that you would put somebody right in front of them, Lord, that you would make it so crystal clear that they need to extend an invitation that they will have no other choice but to do so. Lord, I just pray that you would draw those people to us and help us to be responsible and helping them grow deep in their faith and understand what it means to serve you and what it means to be a Christ follower and what it means to obey and what it means to love you and what it means to accept grace and forgiveness in our lives. Lord, help us to do that part when you bring those people to us. Lord, I just pray, Lord, for this Christmas to be a season of hope that we extend not only to ourselves and our family, but Lord, we are able to extend that hope through others and through our actions and through our invitation. Lord, we love you so much. Thank you for sending your son for us. In your